does SROH suppress or enhance innovation within the highways repair industry? And Carl, I think you're in a good place to start on this one.
Well, thank you very much. So the SROH, specification for openings in the highway, repair of openings in the highway. So if we're talking about cold materials, which we are talking about here, mostly innovation. So how do you get a new material into the specification? How do you manage to get it accepted? So there's a couple of routes in. You can automatically have a material accepted through a product acceptance scheme certificate. So why would you need to do that? Well, the SROH has a massive list under A2 at the back of it of all the types of materials that can be used or should be used within the specification. It doesn't really go into the cold glaze because they're not traditionally the bulk made materials. So it falls under the Products Acceptance Scheme Certificate, which in its former life was, most people understand it as HAPAS. So if you have that certificate, you can bring a product into use and it can be used immediately within the highway. The only caveat with that is that there are restrictions on cold lay materials, so it can only be used in type 3 and 4 roads. Whether or not you could then adapt your product acceptance scheme certificate maybe to get it into a high class road, it's possible. The other route is A9. So this is A9 approvals. So you team up with a council, you can put some of your materials into the road, you can speak to them, you can run them through a process. Traditionally, that used to take, under the old SROH, it used to take 2 years, which is quite a long time for somebody to put money into a project and not be able to sell it. You can use it as binder course during that period, but not many people are going to buy just cold lay for binder course. It is difficult. You can do it. There is now an accelerated route through that, so you can work with the council and accelerate that by doing laboratory testing or through university or something, because road materials are easily tested in a laboratory. But even when you have the A9 approval, it doesn't necessarily mean that all highways and councils will accept it, even though it's been through the full program of testing. So it is, the SROH isn't brilliant. They have tried to address it in the latest edition to try to accelerate that and to do it, but it is still quite difficult.
Appreciate that. Now I think if we move to Barry and ask, are we enhancing or are we suppressing?
Okay, well let's deal with a bigger question then. The SROH, does it enhance or suppress innovation? And we've just heard from Carl there that actually, if it's done correctly, innovation can be introduced very quickly to within the SROH. That's a little word, but there's a big meaning. It's if. Is industry actually prepared to structure itself to introduce changes to what is effectively legislation that has been issued for their own guidance? Well, most of our time we spend the debate around what does effective guidance mean to our sector. So the SROH, as Carl's just explained, is split into two parts. So it provides prescriptive guidance, this is how you shall do something, and then performance-led guidance, this is what we wanted to achieve and that's the outcome we would like. That's where the confusion sits, because the document takes an awful long time to introduce changes into the market. We do have trials, we do have product assurance schemes, they're out there, they're proven, companies know how they're used. And if you've gone through the pain of actually getting your products onto the market through an acceptance scheme, you should be able to sit back, rest assured that these products will be adopted by all authorities that require to use them or need them. It's not always true. It doesn't always happen. I've come from a background where I've written the documents that are used across the whole of the UK. That includes Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and have been adopted by Europe. A lot of the guidance that's within those document sets is replicated within the SROH. But because the SROH is not updated as regularly, the information within that document set can sometimes be a little outdated, confusion. If we then look at actually how that document is being used and does it work for our industry, I'd ask us to challenge the concept of the soft targets that contractors are now being asked to achieve, particularly when it comes to sustainability and the reduction of carbon within all of our materials. Does SROH allow you to introduce those concepts? I'm afraid the jury is out on that one. It's not proven. Is it, again, when we look at small repairs and we introduce safety into that environment, does SROH allow the industry to make choices to or how they will apply safe working practices to meet the key performance targets that the compliant has issued forward? Because we've heard from Hassan and Carl about the hot and warm mixes and the limitations that they have. Its scale of repairs, its repeat journeys backwards and forwards to ensure that you've got the right temperatures in your machines and that you can't use materials that fall below 130 degrees. So for us, it's those targets that will dictate our choice.
Cool. We'll stop you there and we'll just come on to Russell. Which camp is your foot in? Enhance, suppress.
Thanks very much. So, repairing roads the right way has been the sort of strapline for this event today. And the SROH is a document which does help, or it prescribes repairing roads the right way. But if you look at the background to the document, so why was the document introduced? So the document was introduced to hold utility contractors to account back in the 1990s. Local authorities were challenged whereby they had a lot of utility work being done and the reinstatements weren't being done at a consistent quality. So therefore that was the background to the introduction of the SRH. We're now on to version 4, and typically versions take up to 10 years to develop. And my view is 10 years to develop the next version is too long. 10 years from now, we're going to have, we'll have autonomous vehicles running around, all kinds of things can develop in the next 10 years. Things are moving forward fast. We haven't got 10 years to wait for version 5 of the SROH. So is there a way to embrace innovation within that document? As Carl explained, there are ways around it. Does the industry understand that? I would say no. And is it complicated for industry and local authorities to embrace and understand the content within the document? And the answer is yes. So it's the industry don't fully understand, so therefore they'll play safe and stick with what they know. And for the asset owner, there's a lack of understanding there too. So it really does restrict and defer the embracement of innovation, because there's a greater piece here that we need understanding. So we need to have versions coming out every 2 years, and we need to have a better awareness of how we can bring the innovation in and minimise the risk to the utility contractor, and so they can embrace and engage.
Thank you. Hassan, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe if the teams, the R&D, does the research and development at the industrial sectors as well as in university research center, take the guidance and the principles within the SROH and develop their material, the new innovation or invention material, to make sure that they will perform within the restriction required, for the reinstatement. That means the size of the reinstatement, the conditions, the loading, you name it. That will be absolutely very positive to use, the SROH as a guide. As SROH, guidance is not only for the company who are instructing the material. In fact, it's for the road engineer as well as a follow-up on checking the material itself. However, I completely support what Russell mentioned, that if we come with a new innovation, a new invented material, there must be a way of using these materials by inviting the policymakers, for example, the people from the SROH and the industrial to come together into a meeting and agree for express a quick way, of using these innovations. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all your thoughts, gentlemen. So if we move into debate number 2, I guess if I can throw out there, a few people have mentioned the SROH being quite prescriptive. What do we do if we've got a product that performs, doesn't meet the SROH legislation? Can I ask why it matters? If we've got the right answer, why can't we go ahead and play with it? Carl, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah. So the difficulty that we have is that, as it was pointed out before by Barry, that the SROH is a legal document. And it's also prescriptive and performance based. So it's quite easy to have a material which on face of it performs, so that there's a part specification for S2 that gives you performance requirements, how much it can sink, how much it can crown, whether the edges are, how big the crack at the edge, if there is one, is. All of that can be measured, and it's quite simple. A visual measurement, you can measure it with gauges. But it could also fail the construction side. So you could core it, you could test it, and it could fail. So it could be performing perfectly, and it could perform perfectly for 8 years. But it could then actually fail on the other side. And because it is a legal requirement that all parts of it are met, it does make it more complicated. It shouldn't be so difficult if it is performing and it's outperforming that's around it. However, that's the way that the specification is written. We can't get around that. It is a legal requirement.
And bringing it back to something Russell said earlier, then is the only way around that to have a more frequently updated version?
Yeah, so I think we had some suggestions put forward. Well, why can't the document be live? And my example here is we got an ERP system in our business, and we get a live update every quarter. And within that live update, you get an update in performance and criteria, and you may get some add-on plugins, etc., for that ERP system. Is there any reason why we can't have that kind of level of engagement with a document such as SRH, so that as the innovation comes and it's proven by the likes of John Moore's University and out on road trials, etc., why can't it be embraced very, very quickly and updated? As we said, bring the panel together.
There was a plan to have a live document. The part of the problem is that it's not a professional body of people that write the SROH. It's volunteers. It's people who are already working in industry who, in their spare time, work on the document. Now, some companies are very generous and they give people quite a bit of time to do it. Others less so, and it is time consuming. And so as an expert practitioners group, we look at stuff, we write responses to questions, And we then pass that up to the main group, and the main group then have to decide how they're going to put that, whether they're going to put it in, or whether they're not going to put it in, and everybody has an opinion, and it is a difficult thing because you've got all the highways with all their knowledge and all their criteria, and you've got the utilities, but the utilities isn't a single thing. You've got stuff from telecoms which are relatively shallow, very fast moving, to water industry where you've got 2 metre sewers going in 5 metres down in a road. Completely different types of operations and working, and it is a complex thing, and it is people. The time it takes is immense, and they're not paid to do it. It's not part of their job, and they have brought in engineers to look at this, to help with it, but they have a specialism as well. So the big engineers from big companies tend to do big projects. They're not looking at a 0.15 reinstatement around a telegraph pole, but that is part of what we have to deal with it.
And I think I could jump in here in a bit of support, is that actually the industry itself is constrained. If you look at the SROH, we've identified that you can either have prescriptive or performance-led. You can't necessarily achieve the same result if you measure by those two at the same time. So as far as we are concerned within the industry, and actually those that are applying the technical documentation sets under contract, they have to be clear, is it either going to be performance-led, and therefore the material choice has to meet those performance characteristics, or is it performance-led, and the choices have to meet the objectives and the performance indicators that the client has stipulated under contract. One or other, not both.
It's good stuff.
Can I just add to this one? I think the people who are leading the SROH and also the people who are making the policy, I think they need to take into account that basically if you are trying to judge the reinstatement material on their mechanical properties and the void content, for example, you will find if you have a 3 licensed testing center, they will give you different result. And that different result could have a variation of about 5% on the void, for example. So therefore I will suggest that if the reinstatement is really working perfect, there must be some statement in the SROH. It's not to fail these material, in fact to allow it and see the future performance of the material itself. So for example, in our lab, I'm doing some tests, and you will find that because of the road itself, the surface is not perfectly, it's just crown, like this one here. You take the sample from the middle, it will give you a result. If you go a little bit away from this, they will give you different result. And therefore I think the people should really take this into account into the judgment of the quality of the reinstated materials.
That's a good point. So if we move on to question 3, coming back to the hot or cold debate,